lovely people. Hello, this is Toilet Paper Fortune Cookie, a podcast. And it is Unorthodox Wisdom from an Unexpected Reality. Mr. Stokey, would you remind them of what that means?
I don't know what it means, Dave. Back to you.
Damn it. You should have figured it out by now.
I don't know. I called in some special forces.
Oh, yeah, nice. Yeah, it's weird how we match. We did not plan this. Look at that.
Perfectly blends with
I'm picking up the accents from your shirt. It's just weird.
For those of you listening, I have on a Batman t-shirt, the 1960s Batman, and the Batman coloring actually perfectly mimics David's t-shirt. We're in lockstep. And for those of you listening, when we figure out what this podcast is, we're just going to pass it along to you. But that's the point of the whole damn thing, is to discuss all things entrepreneurship in these very strange times that we're living in, but could potentially be extraordinarily creative and maybe perhaps a time of renaissance.
This show is all about it.
Foreshadowing. We're here to share our experiences and share your experiences, how the worlds of business and art, entrepreneurship come together in this new reality, or as Dave and I came up with, the duality of our present reality.
It's alliteration at its best. Love it. So, hey, we hope you enjoy our stories. We hope that you share and like our posts on our group. We're up to 600 people in our Facebook group. Yes, thank you.
Subscribe.
Please subscribe to the podcast on any platform, really. YouTube. You can go out to Podbean. You can go out to Apple. You can go out to Spotify. Give us some comments. Let us know. Even on YouTube, give us some comments. We're starting to get some comments on some of the previous shows on YouTube, so we're starting to build that up. We're transitioning this to a quote unquote real podcast. So, Hey, we want to thank Side Hustle for the use of their intro song. It is called. Nope, that's not right. It is called Common Ground. My script is wrong. It's called Common Ground. And it kind of really fits with what's all going on right now, trying to find some common ground. Go out, listen to it at sidehustletheband.com. You can find them on Apple and Spotify. Like those guys, they're awesome musicians. They have a new EP coming out at the end of the year, so I'm sure we'll do some more promo on that. All right. We've got an amazing show. We've got an amazing guest, and we want to get right to him.
Yeah, we have Dave and I are going to talk less than we normally do, which probably will please most of you. But I mean, we love sharing our experience. But we have a old dear friend of mine. His name is Richard Blanch, and when you hear this man's accomplishments and his list of things that he's done and is currently doing, it's going to blow your doors off. And it's probably not the first time we're going to talk to him. We're probably going to have to fill up some future podcasts with Rich, and extraordinary guy, good human being, dear old friend. So Dave and I are going to go right through our segments here. What do we do? We're going to do unexpected entrepreneur. No, we're not doing that.
Yes. You did it. You introduced me perfectly. Thank you. Yes.
Oh my God, I love that.
So unexpected entrepreneurship. Remember, I would love to have someone tell us a story about how they were an unexpected entrepreneur. And remember, our occasional co-host, Jessica Michaels, really responded, and this really resounded to her because she felt that she was an unexpected entrepreneur. So if you got a story out there, let me know. I wanted to talk today for about 3 minutes about the future of entrepreneurship. And if you are sitting there thinking about, man, I'd really like to start something. I really like to do something, but I just don't know what. I don't know how to do it. I don't know where to start. It will connect definitely to our guest later. I want you to think about the reuse of things. I want you to think about how this time for us has really shifted a lot of different value around from the perspective of commercial real estate. Think about commercial real estate, think about time, and think about, all of the things that this period of time has helped us to do to shift value from one place to another, where all of a sudden we value going to a live show, right? How can you do something that's related to that and maybe make it better? Maybe, I don't know, there's got to be ways that we can continue to shift value. And I believe that's the fertile ground for entrepreneurs as we kind of see how things continue to play out. We're still actively in it, right? We're still, I think we're actually in the middle of it. I mean, we've gone through these roller coasters. I think we're still in the middle of it. So just keep your eyes open, because you could be the next unexpected entrepreneur. And it's really about shifting value. So look for how value has shifted from one place to another. And can you find a way to solve a problem? I hear that a lot. And actually, we're going to hear that, as a theme going forward on this show. Solve a problem. That's the first way you become an entrepreneur. When I started Insignia, we solved the problem that historically accessory cataloging was done in a paper catalog. And by the time they printed it, it was out of date. So guess what? Put it on the internet and it's never out of date. You can update it anytime you want. So we solved the problem, and that birthed a company that's now 19 years old. Hey, did you know, and you didn't know because not many people know, but I actually forget this and then I'm proud of it. So I'm going to mention here on the show. June 1st is my Insignia Anniversary. It's the date that we signed Insignia as the company. Isn't that cool? So that's my anniversary date. It's 19 years. 2001 is
we're going to have a party next June 1.
All right. I know. 20 years.
We're going to have a party.
So I also get to go from almost 20 years or close to 20 years. I get to say 20 years, mofo. That's right.
Yeah. So. And on that theme, and again, we're going to talk to Rich about such things. There are new voids being created every day right now, and there are voids that are going to be just clamoring for people to come in and not necessarily fix them, but find ways of buoying all of these business ventures and all the things we're doing. And if you put on your thinking hat and you put on your big boy pants and your running shoes, there's going to be a place for that idea. And it's a lot of it's going to be repurposing, because if you think about, oh, I never did it before because I'm so far behind, and I can't crack that particular area of business, and it's already filled up and there's no place for me. Bull crap. It's going to be, why not? And what if? What if?
So start those awesome questions that Ryan Sanderson, I'm sure, stole from somebody else, but we stole it from him. So
and also incorporating a lot of our shows, some of it might be purpose-driven entrepreneurship. If you thought about how to help somebody in your community, how to look at your direct surroundings. It doesn't have to be solving the pandemic. It doesn't have to be solving our government, for God's sake. It doesn't have to be
out of bounds.
No names mentioned. But it can be the smallest thing on the smallest level, which can have a butterfly effect to any degree. So I think that there's just going to be an extraordinary amount of opportunity and ways for us to take this into, I'm going to say it again, renaissance.
Absolutely. So Mr. Stokey, do you have a story today?
I have a story. It's a bit of a non sequitur, but it's something that's been on my mind about how you sort of fall into things and how you expect one thing to happen one way and it happens completely differently. And that's also that's kind of a recurring theme. My dream was to be on Broadway. From the time I went to college, my dream was to be on Broadway. And it's everybody who aspires to New York City, you want to be on Broadway. It's the major leagues. There's no Broadway plus. It's the NFL, it's the NHL, it's MLB, it's Broadway. Yeah. And over the course of time, from what I understand, the percentage of people who have come to New York since the beginning of the 20th century through now, Broadway's been around for about 110 years, going back to Gilbert and Sullivan, that the amount of people who've come to New York to pursue a career on Broadway and the amount of people who've actually been on Broadway is about 1%. Wow. And that's extraordinary. And it's very humbling. I've been able to make a career doing it, as have many of my friends. But you always dream that the first time you get offered a Broadway show that you're going to be standing on a stage in a Broadway theater and everyone's going to be out sitting out there and some guy's going to be smoking a cigar and you're going to finish your thing. They're going to talk. Someone's going to walk up on stage and say, "Welcome to Broadway, kid." You know, and it's going to be an amazing thing.
My God, you're spectacular.
They're going to make you a star, you know. Your name's already on the marquee. But no, what actually happens is a story like this. I had been auditioning. I had mentioned it during one of the shows before about Titanic, the musical. It was my first Broadway show. Mm-hmm. And it has a very special connection with me over the years. It's been part of my DNA for whatever reason over the years. I told this crazy story about Charles Clark.
Yeah.
I had been auditioning for the Broadway company in the beginning. I didn't get cast. When they started the first round of replacements, about 6 months into it, I went in and auditioned again and again. I started to know the casting director. I started to know the musical director, which is very, very important. And even more so, who's called the production supervisor. So after the director leaves, a production supervisor comes in, maintains the show, along with the production stage manager. So I'd been auditioning, and I kept getting called back, but they wouldn't tell me exactly what it was for. If it was for the role of Barrett, if it was for the role of I can't remember the other character's name. I forget. But I just kept going back in. I'm like, I don't care. As long as they keep calling me back, fantastic. So I go into what's called my final callback. And it's on a Wednesday morning, which is very
important. Did they call it the final callback?
Is it what?
Did they call it the final callback?
They were going to be casting by the end of that week. So it was last time they were going to see me for this particular role.
Okay.
So I go in that morning and I sing the same material that I had done before. The music director's there. The casting people are there. The production supervisor is there. They talk for about 2 seconds after I'm finished. And Julie Hughes, who was the casting director, comes up and she says, "I want so badly to give you a hug right now." And I was like, because I didn't get it. And she says, "No, because you might have." I said, what?
Yeah, my what?
So Susan Green, who's a production supervisor, and Kevin Stites, who's a music director, all stand up and they say, "We want to hire you." And I was like, okay, what's the problem? You people make all the decisions. Like, okay, here's the story. We want you to take Romain Fruget's place. Romain is a very good friend of mine. We did Full Monty together. He was what they call a swing. Mm. And you play all these different roles, which means you have about 10 times as many costumes as everybody else. So when you're a year into a show around there, they don't want to build $20,000 of new costumes.
Yeah.
They need you to fit in the ones of the person who is leaving.
Oh.
So they all say to me, "We want to hire you. We want to say right now the part's yours. Here's the deal. We think you're about an inch taller than me, and we think that he's about an inch tinier around the waist than you." And I was like, okay.
Uh-huh.
So what am I doing? They're like, so right now they're going to get ready to do a matinee. We want you to go over to the Lunt-Fontanne Theater, and we want you to meet Eddie, who's the head of wardrobe. He's going to take you downstairs. He's going to try on some of Romain's clothes on you. And if they fit, you get the job.
Oh, my God.
This is how shit happens on Broadway.
From that moment to actually going and doing the fitting. I mean,
this was at about 11. This is about 11 o'clock in the morning. The first people start to get in for a matinee at about noon 30.
You had an hour to kind of like process that?
I had about an hour and a half. I went to a place that was called, I believe it was called Oh La La. It was a coffee shop right underneath the Marriott Marquis, which is right in front of the Lunt-Fontanne Theater. And I sat there and I just pounded coffee. Just like,
were you trying to lose weight real quick?
I don't know. Do I need out or something? Do I need to be shorter? Do I need I don't know. And so finally, I keep watching people go into the stage door because I don't know who anybody is. So after everybody would go in, I'd go over to the stage door guy and I'd be like, "Was that Eddie?" And he'd be like, "How about I just give you a high sign when Eddie walks in, because so you don't keep coming and ask me." So finally, this person walks in and he gives me the. So I go over, I go downstairs, and I meet Eddie, who I would end up doing a couple other shows with, and you don't realize that now people are a year into a run. They're just showing up for a matinee and just like, "Who are you?" "Okay, yeah, great.
Yeah.
Put this on, put this on, put this on." I'm sweating buckets. I'm like, my Broadway debut depends on this. He starts throwing clothes on me, and all this stuff. And I'm making sure, like, do they fit? Are they close in this and that? He's making notes. Goes on for 15 minutes. And he goes, "Okay, you're done." And I was like, so what? He was like, I don't know. I was just told to find out if you could fit in Roman's costumes. And I was like, And do I? And he was like, yeah. He's like,
Yeah.
some stuff has to be altered, but yeah, I can use all this stuff. It's great. And I was like, does that mean I have the job? He's like, I don't know. And so I go upstairs and I see the stage manager.
So unsatisfying.
I see the stage manager and he's like, yeah, we'll call general management and we'll talk to them. And I'm like, do I have this job? Like, what? Am I on Broadway? This is the most important thing that will ever happen to me in my life. Like, can somebody please tell me what's going on? And they're like, yeah, we won't be able to find out till after the matinee because we'll talk to Susan and we'll talk to, and I'm just like, so I have to go home right now. It's 1 o'clock and I have to go home till after the matinee, which is going to be like 4:30. And then somebody has to make a phone call and then somebody has to call another person and somebody has to call me. I'm like, yeah, but it'll be in between shows. And I'm like, this was the days when we still had those little Sony phones that you put on the charger, like in Friends. So I went home to my apartment and my roommates were like trying to get on the phone. I'm like, don't touch the phone. Don't you touch that. Something might have happened during the day. And I sat there for 4 hours.
Oh my God.
I called my mom and I was like, here's what I'm going to tell you. I don't know anything yet, but as soon as I do, I'll let you know. And at about 5 o'clock on that Wednesday, my agent called me.
Yay.
He said, I love making this phone call.
Oh, yay.
And I was like, wow. He was like, congratulations, you're going to be on Broadway. And I was like,
oh my gosh.
And I've told that story 500 times to students all over the country. They're just like, if you think it's going to happen this way.
Yeah.
Maybe. But nonetheless, it's you got the job because you fit the costumes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's how big budget theater works. They're like, we think you're awesome, but if the costumes don't fit you, sorry. So cheers.
Oh my gosh. Cheers to Broadway.
You're here.
All right. Well, we thank you for the Stokey story. That was amazing, as always. We are going to thank our sponsor. Our sponsor. Oh, that's the wrong one.
That's us.
That's the right one. There we go. We got it right. Our sponsor is ourselves. No, our sponsor is Knowledge Perk Coffee. If you have not checked out Knowledge Perk Coffee, go on their website. Check out their product. They have a subscription available. And I'm going to get it right this time. This is like the third time I've done this. If you order from them, which we highly recommend, make sure they know that we sent you. We're trying to earn our keep here. So let them know that you're ordering because of you hearing us talk about their coffee. Try it. You will not be disappointed. I particularly like the burn rate, which is the darker coffee. And apparently I found out that if you listen to one of our previous shows, that is less caffeine. So that's a good thing for me anyway, but I just love the taste of the dark coffee. So check out the burn rate. They have some other great flavors as well. What's that?
Tell them we sent you.
Yes. Tell them we sent you. Hey, so we're going to take a short break and we'll be right back with Richard Blanch.
Welcome back, everybody, and thank you to knowledgeperk.com. Go there, order some delicious, delicious coffee. And if you do, tell them the Toilet Paper Fortune Cookie sent you. And we get 10 cents on the dollar for everything that they – oh, no, we don't get anything. But we're working. We're getting there. But it's great stuff. And I wish I were more of a coffee snob. We want to say hello and welcome to a very old dear friend of mine. His name is Richard Blanch, and he is the epitome of entrepreneur and somebody that I've been proud to have called my friend and somebody that I've worked with in many different capacities over the last 15 plus years. He also invited me to his wedding, which was one of the most astonishing weddings ever. And also, I have had the pleasure of working with Rich's incredible wife, Viviana. So, Rich, welcome to the Toilet Paper Fortune Cookie podcast, and thanks for taking time out of your incredibly busy schedule, even as we speak, to come on and talk with us.
Thanks. Thanks for inviting me, guys.
Talk to me about something. You're working with a company called Quiet Engineering right now, and it's IoT. And for even myself, can you speak to what IoT means? It's a little I, a big zero, and a big T. And I read a little bit about it, and it's called the Internet of Things. and it's about, from what I understand, the integrating of businesses all over the world using the internet. Is that too simplistic of a way to explain it?
No, you're not off by talking about it in a simple way. The Internet of Things is the idea that the things that we own, the things that we consume, the objects and things that are within our lives have the ability to communicate to us, but then also communicate amongst each other. And so therefore they can actually operate and do tasks without our use of us, or they can operate and inform us and give us data on things that are occurring around us in our environment. So it's something that has a lot of B2B implications, where businesses now can have areas of their supply chain be communicating real time without the need for human beings to be engaged in that data collection, and tasks can be run against that data. Also, it's B2C. It's something where businesses can operate and work directly with consumers to make their lives easier. And it's not just about consumption. It's about things, every area you could imagine, from healthcare to automotive to retail to food supply, on and on and on. So my work in IoT is pretty specific. I've been brought in by a variety of major Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies to help them strategically understand how IoT could impact their business. So it's looking strategically across their portfolios, across their business, understanding their product categories, their products, and really delving in to figure out how it's not a gimmick, but something that is actually delivering a lot of intrinsic value to their company. Beyond that, my company that I formed is with ex-Microsoft, ex-Google executives, and a bunch of ex-NASA engineers. We're working directly with NASA on IoT that's occurring within NASA, and then also we're commercializing patented technology outside of NASA that has implications on business in the United States.
That's what quiet engineering, that's the goal of quiet engineering. That's what you're doing right now.
Yeah, specifically, we're focused right now on the food supply.
Right.
We're developing and working on hardware and software technologies utilizing NASA patents that will allow us to reduce spoilage, allow us to understand consumption, allow us to reduce waste in our food supply chain. It has a lot of potential because we can track through very low cost, simple sensors that then are more machine learning driven by software. We can track everything from temperature to spoilage to waste to age to you name it around food supply. And that's something we're deeply invested in because we believe it will have a significant impact on the ability to feed a lot more people in the world, but also the ability to remove a lot of environmental concerns that are around food waste.
So is your technology focused in on the gathering and analyzing that data, and then sort of, as you called them, tasks or, things to do based upon that data? Or are you somehow in the technology of collecting that data, or both?
So it's all of it. What we do is we have objects that can collect data on their own that are really, call them dumb smart objects, that collect data using low energy or low sources of energy, and then have the ability to, we can interrogate them, collect that data, and then we can have a series of decisions that are made. So imagine if-then statements based upon the data that we're collecting. So I'll give you an example of one of the prototypes that we've built. And we've built this with NASA. Is we currently have dog bowls. And we started with dogs, where we can track water consumption and food consumption amongst a dog in a house. So this scenario, we can tell you how much water your dog is consuming every single day. We can tell you the temperature of the water, the age of the water. We can tell you how much is even evaporating through simple sensors. We can tell you with food, which food your dog is eating, how fast they're eating. If they like certain food over other food, we can make those determinations solely on the bowls and the way that their behavior and the way they interact with those bowls. And why that's important is it gives us a lot of good test data right now around our hardware and software, but more importantly, it actually has a consumer need, which is based upon how much water or food your dog is consuming, and in this case, I'm saying dog, but we can do cat as well. We can actually now allow you to have a lot of information around their health, because most people don't realize until it's much later in the process that their pet has some sort of issue, a health-related issue, and usually it comes through lack of eating or lack of drinking. We have that data ahead of time. You can even share that data potentially with your vet, and you could see all the implications down the road here, which would reduce your veterinary bills, would allow you to intercede with your sick pet well before they're sick. So we're not looking to make pet owners hypochondriacs, but we're allowing dogs and cats potentially to communicate in a way that they can't communicate now, because, in the case of like a dog that's sick, they're not going to tell you until it's way down the line that something is occurring. And in this case, we could see potential that in the future, you could use the data and use the information we're giving you simply from how your dog is eating and drinking, so that you can actually at home collect a at-home vet kit, which are based upon the data, all the consumer data we've looked at, would be about 1/10 the average vet cost. So instead of you going to a vet and spending anywhere from $500 to $1,000 on your pet to understand what's going on, you could have at-home testing that you could do earlier on, and you would then know whether or not it's something serious or not serious, whether to take it to the next level with the pet and you have to spend more money, or you're $40.
That's awesome.
Doing an at-home kind of vet kit. So these are the kind of things where IoT kind of can really impact quality of life.
That's so cool. I'm very interested in how you started this particular, like your resume of companies that you attribute yourself to is awesome. And how did you have somebody that came to you with this idea? How did you form this particular company? Uh-oh, our internet.
Darn.
Uh-oh.
Sorry, guys. Connection just jumped again.
Yeah, that's okay. So as soon as we get a green light there, we can pick up where you left out. The question was how you started this particular company.
So this company was formed. I had exited a previous company that had nothing to do with this industry. I have owned and done a variety of companies that were technology driven previously. So I spent really the better part of the first 15 years of my career in technology driven businesses. I had moved away from that and moved more into consumer driven businesses, building brands, building retail kind of driven direct to consumer brands. And to be really blunt, I was kind of burned out by that. I wanted to go back after selling that company to technology, which I'd really enjoyed. It just so happened, though, I was doing a lot more investing, advisory, and one of those, could I help them form an IoT strategy? And I said, absolutely, I can. And so as I went deeper in, it turns out one of the companies I was already invested in working with, I was doing a lot of work with the DoD at the time as a major project, the Department of Defense. And that company that I invested in and brought to the DoD had a really interesting spin that they were looking at IoT. It got me interested in it as well. And I started down the rabbit hole of really engaging with talking to NASA and kind of going to the next step. And what the realization that came to me was that NASA, for all of its parts and what they had, they're very hardware-driven, engineer-driven kind of entity. I'm much more of a software integration kind of thinker. And my connections tend to be pretty deep in the software industry. And so it was a naturally really good fit for us, where I could bring software and artificial intelligence expertise to NASA, and they could bring me patented technologies that are, really robust and proven by them in their labs. And so it was a really, really good partnership. And it's just from there, it was a lot of our challenge was figuring out where we thought this technology could have the most scale and growth, but really where it could impact human life the best. And when you're talking about now it's AI, artificial intelligence, when you're talking about these kind of things, and people hear this every day and they're kind of buzzword topics, one of the things to think about is you may have an ultimate goal of trying to solve some sort of big problem, but to get there, every big problem is a lot of small problems. So you want to break it into all of those small problems and solve those small problems. And so as you're solving all those small problems, you're eventually building yourself into something that's solving a big problem. And in regards to IoT, that's really how we're thinking. And that's how we've approached it. And that's why we're starting with something as simple as pets. And looking at their usage of water and food and determining, taking this thing as your dog or cat that has, they communicate to you, but it's good if they're communicating in a way that you have data around it. Because then you can kind of put some analysis beyond a little sleepy or a little more hungry or that kind of thing.
That's extraordinary, and it takes me back to when I had my cat, and the vet told me that I should have come and told her about 6 months earlier that my cat's eating habits had changed considerably. I just thought it was he didn't like the food. He didn't, it turns out he had a little bit of congestive heart failure, and she basically said we would have been able to point those things out at that time, and that's the information that pet owners sometimes kind of sit on, that ends up being more critical than just, I wonder why my cat's not eating his food. So that's incredible. That's incredible on a personal level, on an economic level. I think that's extraordinary. And like you said, the applications are endless to what that kind of data can lead to. I want to talk to you about another thing you're doing right now, because one of the things about our podcast, the reason why Dave and I started it, was the idea of entrepreneurship and business ideas and ventures having to pivot right now, meaning everybody's still moving forwards, but you can't go directly straight. You got to go a little bit either way because of the current situation we're in, because of the shutdown, because of everything that's happening in business. And I know from talking to you throughout this experience that one of the things you're doing is you're incredibly active in getting PPE material to the States, is particularly to New York when we didn't have any. And I hope you can talk a little bit about PandaCare and how that started. And I know where you got the materials from, but the actual medical needs that were sent to New York, I'd love to hear how that came about and how all of a sudden it was exactly what was needed, especially in New York City.
I think similar to a lot of New Yorkers, the feelings we had go back 90 days ago, 100 days ago. I think we all kind of felt the same way. This virus attacked. We saw the frontline health workers, whether they were first responders, from EMTs, firefighters, police, up to hospital workers. So your frontline nurses, doctors. We saw that they were facing a significant challenge, right? And we basically, like we would with our troops in the military, it becomes how can we make an impact? And when I looked at it, for me, it was, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse, so I can't make the impact there. But when I saw that they were lacking the supplies that they needed in order to fight it, and I started to understand why, I noticed that I could make an impact. It helped that some of my connections through Department of Defense contacts and state and city contacts also reached out at the same time, asking me if I had the ability to open up my network specifically in China, because I've done a variety of business in China over the years. Can I open that up? Can I find a way to connect New York State, New York City, the federal government, and a variety of other, hospitals, private industry, whatever, to capacity of factories, and would I be able to do that? And so we kicked it off with a very large charitable piece. We had a whole group of significant companies and people, big name business people that everybody knows, come to the table and put up the funding. It was my job, along with a network of people that I pulled together, to go and get that capacity, to go to China, get the Chinese government to assist us, get, in some cases, the US government to assist us, and then get supplies into hospitals. We had for the first, I would say, 6 weeks, it was a difficult road. I think people have all sorts of information about why they think it was difficult for us to have PPE in the United States. It was actually a very complex problem. You've got overnight a global pandemic, and you've got global demand through the roof, and you only have so much limited supply, no matter what. It wasn't that China was sitting on vast capacity of all of these things and hoarding anything. It was that every country you could imagine was in there fighting for the same things that we were. So luckily, due to relationships that I had, that others that were in my network had, we were able to secure a pretty significant amount of capacity and be able to deliver a lot of materials to frontline workers. And it's the key thing is it's not over. It's still ongoing. The virus may have reduced in New York because of a lot of effort by everybody. And personally, I think our governor did a spectacular job. I mean, unbelievable job, keeping everyone informed, letting them know what's going on. Not to mention, I had the opportunity to work with his and understand how hard they were working at getting what they needed to get and into hospitals. So the effort was just unbelievable. And it was literally 24/7. But I think now you're seeing a lot of states raging across the country with the virus. And I think we may see that we're going to need to take a lot more precautions in these states in the South, the states in the West. We're going to run into probably similar PPE issues, maybe not the same amount of shortages, because we are starting to get stockpiles going and get more things into the country. But it's definitely something that I think people should be paying attention to, and people should be concerned about, and people should be in their communities trying to make sure that there's something to assist the frontline health workers that are there. It's really urgently important, because these are the people that will keep us safe, and these are the people that in many ways are sacrificing their entire lives, their families, literally their lives, to keep us safe. And so it's just the same way we support our troops. We need to support our doctors and our nurses.
That goes without saying. I wish that it was. I wish it was on. I wish it was on the top of everybody's list, and oftentimes it's not. On a personal level, my dearest friend since I was 5 years old, Dr. Emily Farkas, she just came to New York for 3.5 weeks. She has a practice in Iowa. She lives in Los Angeles. And when the first wave of frontline workers were literally falling over because they were so exhausted, it's very much in Emily's nature to go where people need her. And so she made some phone calls and sent some emails, and she ended up coming to New York City to work in the ICU. And she got placed at NYU Langone down on 33rd. And she was absolutely blown away by the level of preparation, by the level of operation that was happening. She had 640 ICU beds filled with COVID patients, which is amazing. They had transformed different parts of the entire building into ICU. And when I told her what you were doing, she basically said, well, there's no way you do anything unless you have equipment to protect yourself. You can't do anything unless you have PPE on the doctors, on the nurses, on everyone who works in the hospital. You can't do anything to help these people if you're not prepared, if you're not protected, because then all of a sudden you all get sick and there's no one to take care of them. And as we've seen the statistics, the amount of frontline workers who got sick was so small, it's almost unheard of, like the amount of people that really got ill. And I can't help but think that's due in large part to the equipment that you, in no small part, provided to them. So on a personal level, especially somebody who lives in New York City and somebody who did have the virus and got very lucky with my symptoms, I say thank you.
Pretty cool.
Moving backwards now, I want to talk about your education. You didn't come at entrepreneurship the same way that most people do. Did you want to build buildings? Is that what it was?
I actually started my school career initially, like the first couple months into school, looking at wanting to be in a business major and go to a major school and kind of go build something, right, in terms of a business. And I quickly then pivoted because I had made a trip and I had seen an architecture school in the city where I was going to college in Washington, D.C. And so once I visited an architecture school and I saw the creativity and I saw the work and I met the students, for me, it was about the fact that there was a way of thinking. It was less about the end product. It was less about the excitement of what they were creating, although that was exciting. It was very much about the process that they took to get to that product. And so for me, at that time, I was 18 years old, and I looked at it and I said, I don't know how to think that way. And therefore, if I want to learn how to think that way, which I thought was really important, and I really do want to solve complex problems, I need to go to this school. And so I still remember telling my father, who was a chemist and a businessman and very, very smart, intellectually high IQ'd individual, that this is what I wanted to do. I was also playing baseball at the time and thought I was going to play baseball, and I dropped baseball, I dropped business and said, I'm going to do architecture, because you got to do architecture full time. It's not something, it's very hard to have other things going on when you're doing architecture at school. And my dad's reaction was, go do it. This is the moment where you need to just go do it. And that's what we did. And the amazing part is it was literally at school when I was a part of a group of people that we founded the first company I founded where I was at. So in a way, it's like full circle. Even though I went to school there to learn how to think and learn how to create and be around creative people, out of that formation was this incredibly creative company that today is a $2.5 billion company. And it was a really amazing experience because being an entrepreneur, working with entrepreneurs while I was in college, still getting my degree, still going through school, all of that kind of work was it was exhausting at times, but it was it prepared me for the way that I approach business today, which I tend to really approach things with a much more creative mind than than kind of a business development mind.
Interesting. One of the kind of strands that I'd like for you to talk about, specifically to your early, those earliest days, and then the last two projects that you just described to us. The common theme that I heard was contacts and relationships, contacts and relationships. I think you represent what I know, me as an entrepreneur, I'd love to get to the level that you're at. And I know many other entrepreneurs that would love to get to the level that you're at in terms of success and accomplishments. And that common theme of relationships and contacts, talk about how important that is. I mean, it sounds like it's vitally important to both of these projects, these newest projects. How did you go about building those relationships?
My belief is that your network and the people that you work with are the oxygen to what you do. I'm not saying that that's a rule of business, because I think there are lots of people that have been successful in business in lots of different ways. For me, it's been a vital part of everything I've done. I seek out people who I know, who I trust, who I believe have skill sets that are in need for what I'm trying to accomplish. I look at it as kind of the same way maybe the military looks at putting together a platoon. You need people that are really good at all these different things. I sit on a board for a major university, and on that board is an incredibly successful man who grew up dyslexic. And he grew up in Europe dyslexic, and he told me his story about how he was told he was stupid, he was dumb, he would amount to nothing, he would be nothing in life. He was basically beaten into the ground through all these years, but he happened to go to this school where there was one brother who looked at him and said, you know what? Just focus your energies and your attention on all these amazing gifts that you have, and you'll find people that can do all the things that you're challenged by that you can't do. There's a whole different stuff there. Instead of telling him to go fix himself and that he was dumb and all this stuff, he was told all these things that you do have are major advantages, and there's other people in the world that can do the things that maybe you're not good at. And he took that to heart. He still was broke. He still had nothing, but he took that to heart. And the love and the belief by this one brother there helped drive him. And eventually he went on, and his story is amazing. He went on to be asked, he was from Ireland. He was asked, hey, he moved to New York. He basically hopped a flight to New York with the money he had. It was a bar back at this time. And one of his friends called him up and said, hey, by the way, this group is in town or whatever. They need someone who can like go around and roadie for them and help set up their equipment, their musicians. He's like, great, I'll do it. A bunch of Irishmen, they're named U2. And so he's roadie. More importantly, after he had success there, it was Bono and U2 and Michael Jackson, all these great artists who invested in his idea. And his idea was to be able to build these power plants that were temporary power plants that could support these huge concerts that these artists wanted to put on. Because every time they went to these stadiums, there wasn't enough power. And that became his power company. And that's how he now today is almost a billionaire. Because that became temporary power for all over the world. So more importantly, he thought about these problems and said, hey, maybe I can go to these places that have been hit by storms, these places that have been hit by war and strife and all this, and I can build power for them. And that's what he's done. He's put power plants all over the world, and he's uplifted people's lives and given power to people in these places that they have, which becomes commerce. And so this is a guy who was told all the way until he was teenage years that he was dumb and all this because he was didn't know what that meant. So I agree with what that brother told him, which is you need to go out and find human beings who are good at what they do. You need to build those relationships, and then you need to find them and kind of make them part of your platoon. And when you have a really strong platoon, you can go out now and accomplish a lot. And it's not about the individual, it's about the group dynamic. And so for me, yeah, network and relationships are incredibly important because I don't have a big enough ego to believe that I know anything about this world. And if I need to solve problems, I need really smart, dedicated, great people who want to achieve that with me.
And this is obviously why over the years you've asked me to do so many projects with you, Rich, because of all I contribute to everything you do. And really, Rich would really be nowhere without me. So I appreciate you saying that you got to get the best and brightest around you.
You were the second story he was about to tell. He told the story about the one Irishman. You were the second.
That's the thing.
The guy that he used to peg with pine cones.
That's right. Yeah. Like I said before, Rich and I have known each other for a long, long time, and we met as two of our best friends were brothers. We became buddies when we were both in New York. We started hanging out at the same bars, telling a bunch of stories. Rich and I are both diehard baseball fans. And over the years, yes, exactly. And over the years, Rich and I have done a lot of business together. Rich did branding for the first company I started called Movable Arts back in 2004, I believe. I've done a couple of presentational projects with him. He had me direct a launch of a hair care company. But in 2009, Rich and his wife came up with an idea for me to do what's called media training. I had no idea what it was. And this is speaking to his idea about pulling people into things because you see certain qualities in them. And Viviana, Rich's wife at the time, was one of the heads of a division of Matrix hair products at L'Oreal. And
She's
she had
still my wife, by the way.
It's what?
You said she was my wife at the time. She's still my wife.
I caught that.
At the time, Rich's wife.
I'm sure
there you go.
She still is. She still most certainly is. Reasons passing understanding, but yes, she still is. So Viviana called me and she said, I have a project that I think I want you to work on, and it's working with my team of these amazing women at Matrix and doing what was called media training, which is to come in and kind of work on their skills in presentation and interviews and things like that. And I basically said to both of them, because I think I was on the phone with both of them at the time, I was like, I don't know how to do that. And it was Rich who said, it was my idea to tell Viviana about this because it's what you've been doing your whole professional life. You go into these situations with other performers, other actors, other creators, and you bounce ideas off them. You look at what their strengths are and you build on those things. And basically they said, you're just teaching acting to people who aren't actors. And in my head, it immediately went from, I don't know what I'm doing, to, I know exactly what I'm doing. And I made up a syllabus. Like Viviana was just like, make up a syllabus, what you want to teach for probably like an hour and 20 minutes, send it to me, and we're going to send it on. You're going to come in next week and we're going to have a meeting and you're going to be hired. And I was like, is this how things work in this world? Is this what just happens? And then they started talking to me about like fees. And I was like, are you kidding me? That's like half what I mean. You're going to pay me to do this? Like, what's going on? So, but it's exactly what happened. And it actually turned into now one of my side hustles that I've been doing for years. And it's all because they had the idea that it wasn't to go out and look at somebody who's like, I'm a professional media trainer and I'll teach you how to gesture on a preposition. No, it wasn't what they wanted. It was basically to say, you're the guy that we want to have in the room with these people because we know certain qualities about you that you will transfer then to people, which is what we want to cultivate. We want to cultivate that side of it. So I ended up doing it with that division of L'Oreal. I've done it with Rich and with Viv several times since. It's one of the most rewarding things I've ever done, and I never would have even thought about it if it wasn't because of that approach that Rich has to putting certain kinds of people in certain positions that you just have an inkling are going to succeed. And Viviana thinks the same way. So it's one of those things that I've been forever thankful. We've done a bunch of other projects together. He's hired me as a photographer as well. We both saw the creative quality that was necessary for his previous company. And there are things that because of the way that he thinks, again, cliche, outside of the box, I've had things as an entrepreneur that I've had the guts to say it is something I can do, something I wouldn't have thought of and said, no, you're damn right I can, and I'm going to use this as a way to expand my repertoire of things to do. So it's coming from what he was just talking about, and I really truly appreciate it. It's been terrific.
But Matt, to that point, I mean, I think one of the things is, and I just saw there was a study that said not everybody has this, which is amazing. There are people actually that don't have an inner voice, which I found incredible, right? And I'd love to meet one of those people and talk to them about it. So they can't hear a voice in their head, right? But I think for the majority of us, every individual on this planet has an inner voice that speaks to them. And unfortunately, every individual on this planet has an inner voice that voice is negative, right? That voice tells everybody what they can achieve. And one of the examples I've always given to employees and things when they get themselves caught up on that voice is I always use the example of frogs in a bucket, right? Especially when you're around others who potentially their negative voice is impacting you. You go to Chinatown or, you've seen in New York City, in Chinatown, they'll have the buckets where they'll have the frogs in the bucket, a bunch of frogs. Those frogs have a 6 or 7 foot vertical jump. That bucket is 3 feet, 3.5 feet. Every one of those frogs has the ability to jump out of that bucket and jump down the street to their safety and not stay in that bucket for whatever's going to happen to them. However, when one frog starts to push its legs off to jump, the other frogs actually, believe it or not, hold them down. They hold their legs. They stop them from jumping. And so that's in many ways analogous to how we as human beings approach each other in a group dynamic. A lot of times if the environment is wrong, right, we tell everybody why things can't be done. And really where it comes from is we have these inner voices that are negative. We all know it. We have somebody that tells us all the time why we can't achieve something, why we can't do something. It's really that we have something that says, hey, I can go and do this, right? Yes, of course, there are people in this world right now who think they can kind of do anything, right? Those people do exist too. But for the most part, we're always telling ourselves what we can't do, and we spend less time telling ourselves what we can do. And so it's really important that we have people around us, and we're in an environment where when that happens, they say, no, try it out, or go do this, or, like I talked about with IoT, break it into smaller problems and try and solve those smaller problems, right? And then maybe you'll achieve a bigger problem, right? So, I think for what you were talking about, we also can get caught up on words, right? We always hear something or labels. So, you heard media training, and you hear that, you've got to go into this corporate environment, this big company, and media training, right? All it took was reframing that for you and just saying, look, that's every day you're a professional actor. Every day you are getting people educated on material, right? Whatever that material is, you're educating people on material that they don't know. And you are engaging them in an entertaining way. You're simplifying for them whatever that topic is that you're presenting to them from that writer. That's what you're doing. And you're doing it in a way that they're paying you money for it, right? And they're coming to see you. They're traveling, and they're coming all the way to Broadway. They want to see you. They want to see you perform. And so thinking about it that way is just a total reframing, right? Because when you say, oh, you're going to do media and you're going to then present all these people at a company, that's a slog. I can't do that. I don't do that. I'm not Tony Robbins, whatever it is. Yeah. So it's a lot of what we do in life is we kind of take that negative voice, and we allow that voice to then control our actions instead of maybe representing that voice is just a risk reward for us, right? And so we need to understand the rewards, sure, but we shouldn't always be risk adverse.
Yeah,
sure.
I love it.
We're going to wrap this up. I mean, we could talk to you. Obviously, we've not even touched on 12 other things, and hopefully, maybe in a month or so, we'll see where we are, and we'll have you back on. And we'll see where we are at that point. One thing I want to finish up on for this time is just asking your opinion about. You and I had this conversation the other night, Rich, about in the midst of a dark time, of a very, very challenging time that we're going through right now, there is the potential, and I see the absolutely eventual outcome being this insane amount of creativity. That the people who are taking this opportunity right now, which is a sort of a roadblock to a lot of people, a lot of other people are going like this. They're going around it and going, this is where my big idea is going to come from. This is where I've been thinking about this, and now I'm going to do it. We talked about that, about the entertainment business. You and I talked about it. My business, which is going to be really tough, the business of Broadway, movies, and television. But as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as somebody who's always thought this way, just give us a little idea of where you are as far as the next steps. Where are we going in the next 6 months? Where are we going in this next year? If you can speak to that, it doesn't have to be, just maybe a few ideas you have about it right now. Sure.
I personally, I'm always going to be an optimist, so it's tough for me to get too down about things. I tend to believe that pressure and time turns carbon into diamonds. And I think right now we're in that moment where there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of anxiety. We're going through it over this course of time. But I also think that through all these kind of struggles and through these kind of areas where we're all taking an inner look at ourselves, and we're taking an external look right now as a society, right? Amongst who our networks are, who the people we associate with, the ideas that are important to us, right? I think that framing and what's going to come out of this is going to be a form of a renaissance. I really do. I think you can see the framework that's there. And I think the negative societal voices that we're seeing, that we can tend to overreact to at times, I think that all they are is the typical, and if you look at the progression of history, the typical voices there to try to keep status quo and to stop that renaissance, because it hurts them in some sort of way, whether it's in their power structure or whether it's in their pocket, whatever it is, right? And I'm a firm believer right now that I don't know about everybody else, and I know there's a lot of suffering occurring right now. And so it's easy for me, I guess, to say it because I'm not suffering at the levels of some of the other people that I see. That said, I believe that what we're going through now should make us stronger as a society. It should make us more equal. It should bring us all sorts of incredible new things, whether it's from the arts, whether it's from science, whether it's from manufacturing. Personally, I think that everybody should be very excited right now about the opportunities that are in the future. And I think people should be thinking about how they can make an impact on their communities. And personally, for me, I think the biggest impact you can make in life is to look around you and look around the community that you're within and use your network that's around you to make that impact in that community. Right now, there are people suffering around every one of us that we can make a big impact on. Sure, we started talking about the PPE stuff and, oh yeah, go to China, get stuff, bring it into this. But there's also a massive impact where it was as simple as you could take hand sanitizer to a local nursing home or an assisted living facility or somebody that needs it. You could find things. We saw people making masks for people. I mean, on and on and on and on. And so I think
come back.
People have gone about solving is what we could be seeing in the near future.
This is one of the reasons why we started this, was that exact thing that you just talked about, Rich. And David and I talked about it probably 2 weeks into the shutdown. And it's how we came up with the idea of doing this podcast, just to talk about this very thing, is that the ideas, the thinkers, the doers, the makers, this is an enormous opportunity. And for at the time right now, there's no bad ideas. It's move forward. And again, for the ones who are ideologically entrenched in things that are not as forward thinking, sorry, you're going to get left behind. And I can't tell you enough, man, how much I appreciate it. And we'll check back in with you in hopefully in a couple of months, and hopefully I'll get to come up and dive in your swimming pool as soon as we get the all clear. Anything to say, David?
This was great, Rich. It was a pleasure to meet you and hear your wisdom and guidance on, I think any entrepreneur can take and absorb and reflect as they are trying to build a company, build an idea. So thank you very much. Your input and wisdom out there is awesome. So
thank you, guys. Thanks. It was great meeting you too.
All right, so that's it for Toilet Paper Fortune Cookie for this episode. We thank our sponsors, and we are going to see you again this episode. The next episode after this one will drop at the end of June, so tune in for that. That's going to be Anton LaPlume. Again, thank you very much. I'm David Stringer. That's Matt Stokey. Wait, there's Matt Stokey. And there's Rich. Look this guy up. He's pretty smart and pretty awesome. So thanks very much. Oh no. There it is.